According to commentators who have followed this royal saga closely, Meghan Markle's entrance into the royal world was far more complex than a simple fairy tale romance. Some observers believe her understanding of the monarchy, the media, and the public eye began long before she ever met Prince Harry, shaped, in part, by the legacy of someone she deeply admired, Princess Diana. Because this story isn't just about a love match. It is about timing, identity, and the unique pressures surrounding a prince who had spent years navigating grief, scrutiny, and global attention. And into that world stepped a woman who understood the power of image, narrative, and presence. So today, we rewind the timeline, before Meghan, before the wedding, before global headlines, to the lesser-seen chapter, the preparation stage. Long before Harry noticed her, long before the engagement, long before her name became a fixture in international media, there was Diana, one of the most photographed and beloved women on earth. Meghan, like millions around the world, admired her. And according to many who observed her rise, that admiration wasn't casual, it was studied deeply. Commentators point to Meghan's familiarity with Diana's interviews, mannerisms, and public style, the soft glances, the gentle gestures, the emotional openness Diana conveyed so naturally. They suggest Meghan paid attention to these traits, perhaps out of respect, perhaps out of fascination. What made this even more noticeable, critics argue, is the contrast between Meghan's early media appearances and her later royal ones. Her Hollywood interviews and red carpet moments showed a confident, polished actress, while her public image after entering Harry's life shifted to something more reserved, emotional, and Diana-esque. Was this intentional? Was it admiration? Was it evolution? Only Meghan knows the truth. But the transformation, the timing, and the dramatic shift in her public persona continue to spark debate about how much of her royal journey was spontaneous and how much was shaped by the legacy of the woman who came before her. Some royal commentators say what Meghan admired in Diana eventually became something more, a study, a framework, almost a blueprint. Not a role in a movie, but a role in history. And in their view, the role she seemed drawn to was Princess Diana. For years, this fascination appeared distant, harmless, even inspirational. But then, they argue, everything shifted. The spark happened when Meghan crossed paths with the one person whose life was forever shaped by Diana's legacy, Prince Harry. Harry, the boy who lost his mother too soon. Harry, who grew up under unrelenting public scrutiny. Harry, who insiders describe as open-hearted, searching, and still carrying the emotional weight of his past. According to these observers, this was the moment Meghan's path changed. The curiosity phase ended, and the next chapter began. In their interpretation, Meghan didn't simply meet a prince. She met the prince whose history, grief, and longing for genuine connection made him uniquely open to someone who understood emotional storytelling. Critics claim this wasn't a conventional romance. It was a moment of alignment, opportunity, and timing. Those who have analyzed the relationship suggest Meghan recognized Harry's sensitivity, his desire to be understood, and his connection to his mother's memory. And, they claim, she stepped into that space with compassion, charisma, and an image that echoed Diana's warmth. To supporters, this was natural compatibility. To skeptics, it looked strategic. From that point forward, her public presence began to resemble Diana's even more, from the gentle expressions to the emotional openness, leading some to believe she knew exactly how deeply those qualities resonated with Harry. By the time Meghan became part of Harry's world, everything seemed to fall into place with uncanny precision. On one side was Meghan, a trained actress who had spent years mastering poise, empathy, timing, and emotional presentation. Acting was more than a profession. It was her craft, her discipline, her fluency. Whether this alignment was fate, intuition, or careful shaping remains a fiercely debated question. On the other side stood Harry, a man shaped by a kind of trauma most people will never touch. He lost his mother when he was just 12. He grew up under a spotlight he never asked for. He spent years wrestling with pressure, grief, and a loneliness that followed him everywhere he went. And according to royal commentators, those emotional scars never fully healed. It wasn't an equal pairing, they argue. It was an imbalance. She brought years of performance training. He brought years of emotional vulnerability. She knew how to adjust her tone, her expression, her presence. He was searching for comfort, stability, and someone who understood him. And according to those who observed their early dynamic, Meghan didn't simply enter Harry's world. She stepped into the emptiness he had carried for decades. They claim she spoke with gentleness, responded with empathy, and mirrored his emotions in a way that made him feel instantly understood. To Harry, it felt like connection. To critics, it looked like precision. One insider described it this way: Harry wasn't just falling in love. He was falling into a role Meghan seemed ready to play. From Harry's perspective, she appeared warm, supportive, nurturing, qualities that faintly echoed the emotional presence he remembered from his mother. But to skeptical observers, this wasn't just chemistry. It was influence. Because once you guide someone's emotions, you shape their choices. And that's where the story takes its turn. As the relationship deepened, subtle changes began to surface, quietly at first, then unmistakably. Harry, once known for his humor, independence, and spontaneous energy, appeared to dim. According to those familiar with the couple's dynamic, he seemed to follow Meghan's lead more and more. Softer, quieter, less assertive. Little by little, his world centered on hers. Some sources claimed Meghan had a strong influence over his decisions, where he went, how he behaved, even how the couple interacted publicly. Observers pointed to tense moments caught on camera, like the kiss where Meghan guided Harry's head down to match her timing and angle, an instance some critics described as choreographed rather than spontaneous. Small gestures, yes, but small gestures can create big patterns. And according to those who watched closely, one pattern stood out. Harry no longer seemed to be steering his own story. Observers say that over time, Harry seemed to lose pieces of the independent personality he once displayed so boldly. The confident prince the world had watched for decades appeared to shrink into the background, while Meghan moved increasingly into the spotlight. Commentators claimed that if Meghan wanted distance, Harry stepped back. If she wanted unity, he stayed close. If she preferred silence, he grew quieter. To these critics, it didn't look like partnership, it looked like direction. And the more she directed, the more he followed. The prince was no longer leading the narrative. He was moving within one. As Meghan's public image became more difficult to manage, her relationship with the royal institution reportedly grew strained. Instead of highlighting the support, the global platform, or the historic wedding watched by millions, she began voicing grievances about the very system she had entered. She spoke about her wedding costs. She suggested she lacked certain freedoms. She described royal life as restrictive, unkind, and isolating. Yet commentators pointed out contradictions, noting that travel records and public engagements painted a more complex picture. Her criticisms weren't soft or subtle. They were direct, pointed, and sometimes openly critical of members of the family, including reflections that involved the late queen. To some, she was finally telling the truth about a rigid institution. To others, she was attacking the monarchy that had welcomed her. Analysts argued that Meghan appeared less focused on upholding royal tradition and more focused on building a narrative in which she was the misunderstood outsider, the mistreated newcomer, the heroine of her own unfolding story.